Hello everyone and welcome back to Fat Pack Magic. We've got the semifinals of the Team Unified Pioneer event, and it's TWC versus Beaverinogax. An interesting name, but it turns out it's a combination of all their last names put together. Now Ryan Marino is on a mono white build, and it looks like he's good to go. And let's see how that pairs up against Ben Friedman's well-piloted mono red aggro. Ben starts off with a Soulscar Mage. He's coming out swinging, and Ryan has his own response, and that's a Thraben Inspector, a nice little 1-2 squire that makes a clue token, allowing him to draw a card later in the match. Looks like he's going to be passing the turn back to Ben, and Ben draws for turn. Now that Soulscar Mage can be a little dangerous, and it's going to come in swinging, but Ryan announces a block. He's going to make him have a trick, and no tricks. Just a block and damage. And Ryan plays his planes and passes the turn back. I guess he's not feeling under any pressure, but he's got a lot of lands in hand as well. Ben starts off his turn with a light up the stage, revealing 2 cards, and it's a Get You Lava Runner and a Prowess trigger that's going to be able to deal 2 damage to Ryan because he's not willing to trade a Thraben Inspector for a 1-2 with Prowess. And end of turn, he pops a clue token, drawing a card, hoping to get something juicy going on, and a Knight of the White Orchid is pretty juicy, allowing him to get up another land and have a land to play for a turn, a little bit of ramp, and a nice 2-2 creature with first strike, able to maybe block that Soulscar Mage if there's no tricks. But here comes another Thraben Inspector to make another clue token, plays land for turn, and he passes back. Now, it looks like he's got a Anthem in hand, so he's not too afraid of what Ryan's got going on. But Ryan is going to have his Knight of the White Orchid blasted off with a Lightning Strike as Ben comes swinging in for 4 damage, and 2 Thraben Inspectors are going to double block that Get You Lava Runner, who's going to chew up one of them and deal 2 damage to Ryan, bringing him down to 16, but here's the follow-up of a Light Up the Stage, revealing a Wild Slash and a Bomat Courier. It looks like Ryan has enough lands to really not draw any more for the rest of the game, but here's a Thraben Inspector, and that's number 3, and an additional clue token, but Always Watching is going to make them a 2-3, and give it Vigilance, swinging in for 2 damage and bringing Ben down to 18 for his first points of damage of the game. Now, unfortunately, that Soulscar Mage is going to really put a damper on all of Ryan's plans because damage in the form of burn spells comes as 1/1 counters, -1/-1 counters. Ben starts off with a Bomat Courier, and it looks like he's contemplating on whether or not he wants to really swing in and maybe take out one of those Thraben Inspectors. That Anthem is pretty strong, the Vigilance allowing Ryan to play offense and defense, which is pivotal against the mono red decks. However, he seems pretty light on creatures in this regard. And he knows that Ben not only has the Soulscar Mage, but the Wild Slash to make any blocks a little bit trickier than Ryan would want. So Ben deciding he's going to attack with both and put a card underneath the Bomat Courier. He can't get through the Soulscar Mage, but he puts a Thraben Inspector in front of the Bomat Courier. Wild Slash burns it for 2 damage, giving it -1/-1 counters, making it an 0-1, and giving a Prowess trigger to the Soulscar Mage, allowing the Bomat Courier to chew through one of the Inspectors and deal 2 damage to Ryan, bringing him down to 14. And here's another Light Up the Stage. It's card advantage extravaganza for Ben at this moment, being able to draw just so many cards and go through his deck so fast. And Ryan's only way to draw cards is clue tokens, and those soak up 2 mana every turn. And normally that would be great, but he needs more creatures, and all he's got are lands and another Always Watching in hand. Ryan starts off his turn, and there's a Wizard's Lightning waiting in the wings to chew through that final Thraben Inspector, because that Always Watching is going to probably come down. But first, Ryan's got to draw a clue token. And it's another land. I mean, Ryan's probably playing between 18 to 22 lands in this mono white deck. He probably doesn't need any more lands at this point. But both of them seem to be making their land drops and then some at this juncture. Ryan knows that Wizard Lightning is going to be aimed at the Thraben Inspector's face, but he's got to do it. He plays Always Watching on the stack. Wizard Lightning chews through it, and he's got 2 +1/+1 enchantments. But man, that Soulscar Mage is just dealing so much damage. And now here comes another Get You Lava Runner as Ben swings in for 6. The question is, tricks? Tricks? No tricks. Only 6 damage, bringing Ryan down to 8. But he needs something big to really get through this team. The Always Watching is, it's fine, but it's not creatures. And it looks like Ryan is just land flooded here. He's deciding on what he wants his play to be, and if he can even get through this game. Because next turn, he's going to have another 6 damage coming in, and unless he drops more than 1 creature, a minimum of 4 is going to be getting through, and then potentially more with the tricks on the stack with the Soulscar Mage. Ryan really looking over his hand, doing some math, and a little bit of consultation on the side here and there. These players have 60 minutes, a little bit longer, because they need to be able to kind of give advice to their buddies and, you know, that kind of thing. Question is, what's Ryan planning on doing? He seems pretty pinned down here. Alright, so he's going to drop a land. What else you got for us, Ryan? And... okay. Alright. A Walking Ballista on 3. That's a pretty good way to start. So it's a 5/5 Walking Ballista. And it looks like it's going to start shooting. And it removes 1 counter. It's going to kill the Bomat Courier. In response, kill the Bomat Courier to sacrifice it to draw 2 cards from hand. And it looks like that's it for Ryan's turn. He's deciding on whether or not he's going to pass. But he can block and kill off another creature and kind of equalize the board. And it might just be the correct thing to kill off that Soulscar Mage before any more damage can be done, and then block a Get You Lava Runner. But Ryan instead opts to pass, because if Ben did use a trick to keep the Soulscar Mage alive in response to the Walking Ballista, then the Soulscar Mage wouldn't get the pump next turn. But here Ben goes in, swinging for 5. Ryan blocks a Get You Lava Runner with his Ballista, and it looks like it's time for tricks now. And a Bone Crusher Giant is going to be going at Ryan's face. That's going to put a Prowess trigger on the stack, and in response, Ryan is going to remove 1 counter, take 2, go down to 6, but what is he going to use on that counter for? He's going to shoot the Lava Runner and shoot it again, killing it off. And now, is Ben going to try and kill off the Walking Ballista in response? Because it's still a 2/2 with those anthems going. Ben says, okay, damage. They trade? Or does he want to save his Get You Lava Runner? Does he have another trick in hand? Tapping 1 mana. It's a Wild Slash. It's gonna pump the Soulscar Mage. He's aiming it at the face. Ryan goes down to 1 from that exchange, and then Ben casts the Bone Crusher Giant, And Ryan is just dead to a burn spell or pretty much anything. So he uses his last clue token, hoping to draw maybe another creature, and that is it. That is game 1 to Ben, piloting that amazing mono red deck. Now, while these guys are shuffling up, we're going to take a peek at another match, and it looks like Rob Pisano is getting ready to start off with Simic Aggro against Quest Beaver's Orzhov Zombies. So let's take a look at that right now. And here we go. Rob Pisano is on the right playing Simic Aggro, and he leads Quest Beaver, who's playing Orzhov Zombies, 1-0. Now, when I was taking a look at Quest's deck, it was really interesting. I mean, it feels kind of like a homebrew, but it's gotten this far, so I'm really excited to see how it plays out. Rob is going to be down a card, and Quest starts off with a Temple, allowing him to scry 1 before passing the turn, deciding on whether or not he wants to keep it on top. Rob is very eager to draw the top card of his library, and Quest getting a little bit of insight, and he decides to keep it on top. Or does he? No, it's going to the bottom instead, and Rob finally gets to draw, and it looks like he's pumping out a turn 1 Elvish Mystic before passing the turn back to Quest. Quest taking 2 life from a Godless Shrine, going down to 18, and what has he gotten? Hey, here we go. A Wayward Servant. Whenever another zombie enters the battlefield, each opponent loses 1 life, and you gain 1 life. And it's a 2/2, so a Drain Bear. Rob plays out a Llanowar Elves and then a Scavenging Ooze, hoping to kind of mitigate some of the drain life aspects from that Wayward Servant by gaining life with the Scavenging Ooze. He passes the turn over to Quest, and Quest deciding on what is the bigger threat. Looks like he's going to play a Corpse Knight, gaining 1 life and dealing 1 damage to Rob, bringing him down to 19, and then another point of damage taken from the Caves of Koilos for a Dark Salvation, giving the Scavenging Ooze -2/-2, and then the Wayward Servant coming in, swinging in for 2, bringing Rob down to 17. Rob was not looking forward to that play, but here comes a Gilded Goose, making a food token as he passes the turn back to Quest. Quest taking another 2 life. Those shocklands not doing too much because he's gaining life off the creatures. And a Diregraph Colossus is going to ping Rob for 2 damage, and anytime another zombie enters play, he's going to make a zombie. And here comes a Crypt Breaker, dealing 2 more damage to Rob, gaining Quest another life, triggering that freaking Diregraph zombie to do another 2 damage. And Rob is just flabbergasted because he's landed at 11 from just these zombie dudes who are going to be able to take control of the game. Rob, using the food token to gain a little bit of life, he needs some way to deal with this monstrous army, and he scoops it up. He sees it, he's like, no, I can't get through this. We're going on to game 3. And while they shuffle up, it looks like Ryan and Ben have finished their match. So TWC leads Beaverinogax 1-0 in matches, and now Rob really needs to win this game to clinch the match. But while they're shuffling up and going to sideboard, we're going to take a look at the other match in Seat C. Alright, boys and girls, strap yourself in because we've got Game 3 featuring Jacob Wilson and Josh Gax. Jacob Wilson versus Josh Gax. Jacob is piloting Mono Black, and Josh is playing Azorius Spirits. They're both tied 1-1. It's Game 3, and both teams really need this win. Jacob needing to, get this win for his team, and Josh needing this win to stay alive. Looks like Josh is going to start off with taking 2 points of damage, going down to 18, and passing the turn back to Jacob. It looks like Jacob is just going to play another land and pass, but Josh is going to start off with a Spectral Sailor, which is going to allow him to start drawing cards later, but still, it's a 1/1 flyer. Now the question is, does Josh have a Curious Obsession to back it up? Instead, he's going to play a Mutavault and just ping Jacob for 1, bringing him down to 19 before passing the turn back, playing a Mutavault and hoping to get that Summoning Sickness out of the way. Now, in hand, he's got a Spell Queller, and that might be pretty juicy to kind of soak up one of Jacob's spells. But Jacob is running a ton of removal. A lot of removal. Jacob is running a metric lot of removal. Now he's kind of conferring with his teammate Ben. And, oh wow, Rob lost his Game 3 match. And now both teams are tied 1-1. So this Game 3 is pivotal. The winner of this game is going to take the team match. So a lot of money is on the line. Over $600 for first place. And I believe it's $400 for second. So, man, gotta be on top of your plays here. You need a lot of just concentration. And Jacob is really in the tank here, trying to decide on what he wants to pitch out here. Because Josh is playing blue-white. And it can be tricky with counter magic and, tricks out the yin-yang. So Jacob finally makes his play, dropping Liliana the Last Hope, going to +1, killing off that Spectral Sailor, immediately getting card advantage off that play, and passing the turn to Josh, and Josh has no follow-up on his end of turn step. Instead, he just takes his turn, draws, plays land for turn, and it looks like he's going to be passing back to Jacob. He's holding that Spell Queller in hand, so, that's good, but still, that Liliana needs to be dealt with. She can start milling Jacob, getting creatures back into hand, or just going for the ultimate at -7. Jacob decides to play 3, or tap 3, untap 3, plays land. He doesn't want to get burned out by Censor. And here comes Soren, who's going to get sucked up into a Spell Queller, and Liliana is going to plus her ability to give the Spell Queller -2, -1, making it an 0-2, meaning that no damage can get through to the Liliana. And it looks like Josh is missing a land drop as he just passes the turn back. Jacob really in the tank here. There's a lot of decisions, and pretty much the main thing is Jacob just needs to wait out Josh's spirits and hopefully just burn through the counter magic and finally draw some cards off of a Castle Locthwain, or hopefully ultimate that Liliana. He plays his land for turn, and he's got Herblord, so everything is a swamp, everything can be tapped for black. And Liliana goes up to 6, -2 the Spell Queller, and drops Cry of the Carnarium. That's going to give all creatures -2, -2 until end of turn, and that means that the Spell Queller is going to die, and Jacob will be able to cast that Soren. But another Spell Queller is going to come down and soak up the Cry, but a Grasp of Darkness is going to kill that Spell Queller. The Cry is going to then kill the other Spell Queller, and then Soren is going to land, and it looks like Jacob is deciding on what mode he wants to take for the Soren. And it's -3 to drop a Kalitas. And that is pretty good. A 3/4 with lifelink that's going to exile all of Josh's cards, or creatures, and make zombies in addition to that. But a Declaration in Stone is going to say, you know what, no, Kalitas, you're exiled, gives Jacob a clue token, and Josh passes the turn. Jacob cracks the clue token, draws a card, taps 1, and here's a Thoughtseize. Now Josh is deciding on whether or not he wants to cast a spell in response. They say no, and Jacob is facing down a suite of flyers here. A Spectral Sailor, a Brazen Borrower, and 2 Empyrean Eagles that can pump up the flyers. And the question is, what is the biggest threat against Jacob right now? And I guess I could kind of see why they would not want to cast out the Spectral Sailor right now, because then Liliana could just kill off the Sailor, and then you've not really done anything and lost 2 cards. Jacob kind of going through the cards in hand. What is the biggest threat? And I mean, maybe the Brazen Borrower to prevent it from bouncing the Liliana? He's got the Mutavault to block Josh's Mutavault, and I don't think Josh really wants to trade lands at the moment. Jacob discussing it with his teammates. What is the biggest threat? And oh man, they are taking their time, but these players have 60 minutes to go through and really hash out every turn. So it looks like Jacob has decided on his target, and it's going to be the Spectral Sailor. 1/1 drop for another, and it's going to force Josh to use that Brazen Borrower to bounce the Liliana next turn. So he activates the Mutavault, pluses Soren to put a +1/+1 counter on said Mutavault, and then activates Liliana, bringing her to 7. And she's in ultimate range. Now the question is, I mean, can Josh get through this? Because he's facing down 2 Planeswalkers and Jacob, who is just casually being able to rip through Josh's game plan at the moment. That and Josh is not drawing the lands he needs. He has been stuck on 3 lands. And for these kinds of decks, you kind of want to hit your land drops up to 4, up to 5. But Josh is sending the Brazen Borrower out on a mission, bouncing the Liliana, and resetting that clock on that very dangerous ultimate. But Jacob plays it back down again, pluses Liliana, or maybe? Oh yeah, pluses Liliana with no target, activates the Mutavault, activates Soren, giving the Mutavault another +1/+1 counter as he swings in, gaining 4 life, bringing him up to 21, and bringing Josh down to 14 as he passes the turn back. I guess he's not too afraid of that Mutavault anymore, hitting his Liliana, or maybe even killing off Soren. Does Jacob have some removal in hand? Or maybe he just knows that the Mutavault is needed as mana to cast out spells. And that's what it's going to do, making an Empyrean Eagle, which means that all of his other creatures with flying get +1/+1, and it's a 2/3? So next turn he can probably start getting in there at one of the Planeswalkers unless Liliana decides otherwise. Jacob plays Castle Lochthwain and activates it immediately, losing 2 life but drawing a card, and that's pretty critical for this mono black deck. Jacob tapping another mana. Very carefully, very gently playing the Knight of the Ebon Legion and activating Soren. And Soren's gonna sacrifice the Knight to deal 3 damage to the Eagle, gaining Jacob another 3 life, bringing him back up to 22. Liliana goes down 2 and is going to return a creature back to Jacob's hand. Jacob casting the Knight again, crashing in for 4 against Josh, and this is going to put another counter on the Knight of the Ebon Legion before Jacob decides to pass the turn back. And look at that group of lands. Jacob is on 8 lands, and finally, Josh has found his 4th land, meaning that his Settle the Wreckage is now live, but for the most part, he's stuck. That Mutavault, the Soren, the Liliana, Jacob has really taken advantage of Josh not being able to play out spells as efficiently and just building up an entire board presence based around card advantage. Because Josh has 4 cards in hand, but Castle Lochthwain, Liliana, Soren, all these cards in conjuncture just being able to trash through Josh's game plan. Jacob decides to swing in for a measly 2 damage. And Josh deciding on whether or not he wants to block. He's going to need something to block because Jacob is representing a lot of damage with those untapped lands because Knight can pump as much as Knight wants to pump. And it looks like he has 1, 2, 3, 4 3 activations on there. But Josh just says, I can't risk it. Settle the Wreckage, exiling the Knight of the Ebon Legion, bringing another land back onto Jacob's field. And now Jacob has plenty of mana to work with. And here's another Knight of the Ebon Legion, as if to add insult to injury. And now Jacob is going to be able to draw a card off that castle and immediately plays it down. It's a Dusk Legion Zealot, which is going to chain into another card at the cost of 1 life, bringing Jacob down to 10. But all these cards in hand are totally worth it. He pluses Liliana and passes the turn to Josh. Josh is in a very rough predicament here. He needs a way to kind of get through that night. Or just get those Planeswalkers out of the way. They have completely taken over the game plan because they're just huge card advantage. Josh can't really play out that Brazen Borrower because Liliana's +1 will just kill it in an instant. Well, not in an instant, but it'll kill it. Soren gets pumped up, puts a counter on the Knight of the Ebon Legion, which crashes in with the Dusk Legion Zealot for, just 3 damage for now. Josh taps 1. Here's a Spectral Sailor. I guess he wants to block the Dusk Legion Zealot with the Mutavault, but that would put it in range for the Liliana to get in there. So here comes a chump block against the Knight of the Ebon Legion. Josh only takes 1 damage, going down to 9, and Jacob gaining 2 life, going up to 22 because Soren gives those vampires lifelink. Here's 2 mana, a Gifted Aetherborn, a 2/3 vampire, and another chunk of mana, drawing another card off the castle and putting him down to 18. Oh no, wait, 22. Or he was at 22. He goes down to 20. But here's Drana, Liberator of Malakir, a flying first strike who gives an Anthem effect whenever she deals combat damage to a player. And now Josh is really up the creek without a paddle, because the second Drana hits, she is going to pump up the entire team. But at the end of turn, Josh plays out Rattle Chains, a 2/1 flash flyer, and he can cast spirit spells as though they had flash. I mean, it's a great card, but it looks like Jacob has a lot more of an advantage here, because that Rattle Chains is pretty much going to have to chump block the Knight. That means that at a minimum, there's going to be 4, 5, 6, 7 damage coming through. But it seems like Jacob's going to be careful. He sees Settle the Wreckage mana, and he crashes in for 4 damage. Offering it up is, do you have another Settle? He doesn't have another Settle, but he does have an Empyrean Eagle, which can be cast because it's a spirit. And that's going to pump up the Rattle Chains and make it a 3/2, which is going to be a great 3/2 chump blocker. And here's Mutavault. Mutavault activation happens. Jacob deciding if he wants to do something before blocks. Taps 1 mana. And here's a Disfigure, giving it -2/-2, and then a Fatal Push on the Rattle Chains. I guess they're trying to figure out why the Mutavault lives, because it doesn't have flying. But the Fatal Push kills off the Rattle Chains, and now Josh is left with a single Eagle to chump block the Knight of the Ebon Legion. So he blocks there. The Knight gets a pump to be able to kill off the Eagle, and Josh takes 2 damage, and Jacob gains 2 life off of that Gifted Aetherborn, bringing him back up to 22. And then he's going to sacrifice the Dusk Legion Zealot to the Soren to deal 3 damage to Josh, bringing him up to 25, milling 2 more cards with Liliana to bring back, it looks like, the Dusk Legion Zealot. And he's going to lose another 2 life from the castle, bringing him down to 23. And here comes a Knight of the Even Legion. Josh draws. How is he going to get through this? And that is the game, set, and match for Jacob, bringing the team win for Team TWC. And what an awesome spectacle. I mean, mono black against blue-white spirits. I feel bad for Josh because he got really stuck on lands, but that's just how it goes sometimes, and Jacob was just able to draw out so many cards and outvalue the blue-white spirits deck. But that's it for us this time on Fat Pack Magic. Unfortunately, there's not going to be a final round of the Team Unified Pioneer because Team TWC and the other team decided to split. But don't despair because we've got more Pioneer coverage, we've got more Vintage Cube coming, and we've got a lot of other stuff in the works. So make sure you tap that notification bell, hit the subscribe button, and if you like the stuff, leave me a like. It makes me feel really good inside when you guys do that. I like it. Also, be sure to check out the behind the scenes footage on Instagram. And if you like this content and you want to support us, check us out on Patreon. We've got cool gift bags and grab bags and all kinds of stuff like that. I love giving away stuff to people who support me, and your support means a lot. Like me making these videos, going to the tournaments, getting the coverage, setting up, and doing all this stuff. It's a lot of work, and I really appreciate you guys supporting me. But until next time, may all your packs be fat.